Missing, I think we are all here. No elephants, expectations, move closer to the end.
Good afternoon, my name is Amy, and I'm doing just fine. No time constraints. Yeah, no time constraints. Who's playing tonight? No time constraints, though. Okay, thank you. No time constraints. The missing, well, we'll see. No elephants, and my I don't know exactly what that means, but my expectations are to make significant progress.
No problem. Good evening, everyone. My name is Kevin Kelsey, the Director of Payroll. I have no time constraints, no elephants, and expectations to make significant progress.
Hi, I'm Mike Kingwood. I'm doing great. I have no time constraints. Missing's noted, no elephants. Expectation, make significant progress.
Good afternoon, Ben Osman. I'm doing great. I have no time constraints. Missing is noted. Elephants none. Expectations make significant progress.
Of course, McIntosh, I'm doing fine. Assistant School Board Attorney, no time constraints. Missing has been noted. No elephants. Expectations to make progress.
Carl Burnside, I'm doing fine. No time constraints tonight. I have one on Wednesday. Wednesday this week? Yeah, okay. I'll get to why. Elephants, none. Expectations is that let's be ambitious and get it done tonight.
Jessica Duncan, I'm doing well, no time constraints. And Carl, I also have a time constraint on Wednesday. No missing, no elephants. And again, due to my time constraint, I'm going to go with Carl, and let's get it done tonight. And Cole, I am well, no time constraints, no one is missing, no elephants, and I will go and get it done tonight.
Helen Martin, I am doing well, no time constraints, no missing tonight from our group, no elephants, expectations move closer to the end.
I'm Shannon Johnston, I'm doing great. No time constraints, missing, nobody's missing. Elephants, none. And expectations, I'll go with move closer to the end.
Good evening. My name is Kurt Fazone, Chief Negotiator for the union. I'm fine, no time constraints. I think everyone's here on our side. Oh, Mari's, I'm sorry, I looked right at it. No elephants, expectations. I'll go with make significant progress.
My name is Kevin Daly. I'm the president of Teachers Association of Lee County. I'm a little warm. We can do something about the AC, that'd be great. No time constraints missing, notice, no elephants, expectation, we're going to make significant progress.
Good afternoon, I'm Jill Castellano. I am a teacher at Cypress Creek Middle and the Vice President of TALC. I don't have any time constraints for today. Missing has been noted. I don't have any elements, and my expectation is make significant progress.
Good afternoon. My name is Anna Witten. I am a fourth grade teacher at Franklin Park Elementary as well as the TALC secretary. I'm doing fine. I'm also very exhausted. Missing is noted, no time constraints, no elephants. Let's make progress.
Good afternoon, my name is Shay Griffin. I am the testing coordinator at Island Coast High School. I'm also the TALC treasurer. I am doing okay. So it's okay.
missing has been noted, no time constraints, no elephants.
Expectations.
Let's make progress.
My name is Amy Johnson. I am a teacher at Mariner Middle School. I am doing well. I have no time constraints, missing is noted, no elements, and I'll go with make significant progress.
Good afternoon, my name is Bashonda Hutchins Cologne, and I'm today, my allergies are bad. I'm the grade 3 through 5 math coach at Franklin Park Elementary. I have no time constraints, missing is noted, no elephants, and I also want to make significant progress.
Anything Christina Starrett, I'm a K-5 art teacher at Church of the Desert Elementary. Doing well, no time constraints, missing is noted, no elephants, making significant progress.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Iris Grimaldi. I'm a licensed mental health professional. I am doing fine. I have no time constraints. Missing has been noted, no elements. Expectation is to make significant progress.
Good evening, my name is Louis Fisher. I'm the director of bands at Gateway High School. A little bit tired, have no time constraints. Missing has been noted, no elephants, and expectation is to get it done tonight.
I am Heather Rodriguez Whipples. I'm a school counselor at Calusa Middle School. I'm fine. I have no time constraints. Missing has been noted, no elephants, and to make significant progress.
Mark Macchia. I'm a kid, but I got to yell in kindergarten class. Yelled at me on my shirt first time I wore it, so I'm okay. I have no time constraints. Missing is noted, no elephants. Forgive me, I was at leadership in my school. Missing has been noted, no elephants. My expectations are making progress.
Okay. Amy French, I'm doing well today. I don't have any time constraints. Don is not here tonight, you just mark it up. I do not have any elephants, and my expectations are to help you complete all of your expectations. So go ahead and start with the minutes. And anybody have any notes for the minutes? Amy, go ahead.
All right, on page 1, the first bullet under story, Article 7, it says 41% of teachers want face-to-face. I think that's supposed to be face-to-face.
It is.
It could be a new expression.
Okay.
On page 2, under Article 7, notice for meetings, 3 bullets up from the bottom, it should be apostrophe S to tell the goal.
Say it again, I'm sorry.
Third bullet from the bottom of Article 7, notice for meetings. I'm not sure if this is a correction, but it said on page 3, under district caucus report, under options, option 5, it says, every effort will be made, including consultation with the TALC rep and calendar committee. I think the TALC rep is on the calendar committee, so I don't know if that's necessary in there.
Yeah, that was our option. I think that's the way it was worded. No, that's how it's supposed to be. Yes, they should.
All right, on page, on April 18th, page 205, under 13.05.
We already did April 18th, except the 22nd.
Did we?
I don't think we did.
I don't think we had.
Oh, I didn't? Okay, sorry. 13.05.
Under 13.05 on page 2, the 7th bullet has TBD capitalized, and then the 9th bullet has TBD lowercase, and I don't care how you want to do it, just so they're both the same.
Gotcha.
And then Rob, I don't know if you have the notes open right now, but under the TALC caucus report on 2, under options 6 and 7 both have periods at the end.
Thanks. Violated my open rule.
Right, and option 8 on page 3 also has a period.
Autocorrect.
And like I said, I don't care, as long as it's consistent. On page, oh, sorry, Mark, I'll wait. On page 4 of 5, option 1 and option 2 both have periods at the end.
Oh, no, I can explain that. Options, I do put periods at the end. Because they're actual sentences, because they're an actual option. They're not just random thoughts like.
Okay, I will make a note of that,
Yeah,
so that I
yeah.
don't.
So, sorry.
That's okay. Under
Sorry.
page 4 of 5, district caucus report. The 4th bullet. It says teaches, and I think it should be teachers.
Yeah.
And then under tell me to slow down.
It should say teach.
Teachers instead of teaches. And then under TALC caucus report options, it says PLC should last no more than a planning period, maybe no longer than a planning period.
Yeah.
No longer. And the only other thing I have is on page 5, under Article 7. It says TALC will not agree to extending the length of the student day. I'm not sure that's how it was phrased. I know Anna does a better job of keeping notes than I do.
I left it in the car.
Okay.
I'm not going back out.
Oh, that's right. Oh, there was a response to that was a management decision. So it wasn't that we would not agree to it, it was just that it was not our decision to make.
That was verbatim.
And that's it?
Well, that means you agree, not to be semantic.
Right.
I got you.
We have no option to agree or disagree, it's not our responsibility.
Okay, can we move to accept the minutes as with the corrections? Give me a thumbs up.
Both, that's 18.
Oh, the 18th and the 26th. Thank you. Okay, we are starting now with Article 7, LDS faculty meetings. And let's see, we've got some. We don't have Article 7 at the top, sorry, our here snapshot, we do have Article 10.
Not a snapshot, but that exact issue was written.
Okay, so some, we need to be cautious with virtual.
It's the one where it says, can we have a virtual option just for you?
Oh, can we, oh, I thought the virtual, oh, yes, the virtual.
It is.
Oh, okay. Can we have virtual options just for meetings?
Yeah.
Okay.
Kerr, go ahead.
So I think we tabled this at the last bargaining session to allow the district some time to speak to the principal, and it said the principal has stated that, I'd have the email here. All meetings are virtual during the school year. Even the folks that have in-person positions have a virtual option for staff meetings. So I was hoping we could reach maybe some quick consensus on putting that in CBA. The virtual option for faculty meetings for LBS instructors.
So you want to put that as an option?
I believe it already was at one point. I don't know what option number it was.
So we're going to do option for LBS meetings. Will that work?
That works for me.
Work for you, Rob?
Yes.
About option LBS meetings. And then if you'll give Mark a second here, Kerr, and then reword that.
Oh, man.
I'll just put it right there. Oh, this is gonna be a short one. Option LBS meetings.
Amy, not to be too detailed, but I think it's LVS instructional staff faculty meetings.
Okay, got it, thank you. LBS instructional staff. Faculty meetings. Thank you for that clarification.
I have the option right here if you want to read it.
Okay.
Is that gonna be option one?
Okay, here is the option. Instructional staff assigned to lead virtual schools.
You want to just take that up?
Well, he needs this back. Will be provided a virtual option for staff meetings. So read that again. Instructional staff assigned to LBS. Will be provided a virtual option for staff meetings. Thank you, Kirk. Okay, we do have one option. Anybody have another option? Any comments, questions, clarifications on this option?
Like to test it.
Excellent. We will test this option, LBS instructional staff faculty meeting option. Any thumbs up? That, orange circle, 2 orange circles, 20 minutes.
Thank you.
Excellent. Great job. Okay, so our next one. Yes, Rob?
Before we move on from Article 7, I just have to, because there was a conclusion of a meeting where we just talked about the minutes, about student day, and heard Kevin loud and clear, but I think we just need to be heard. So, on that issue, we believe that it would be to the benefit of the students in this district at the secondary level, we're not talking about elementary, to go to school for a longer period of time during the school day. And basically, we would propose a day at high school anyway, from 7:05 to 2:05. And the genesis of this is we are last in the state when it comes to student day. So our student day is 6 hours and 30 minutes. There are a couple districts that are the same as ours, Pinellas being one, when it comes to the Big Ten districts. But others, including Collier, which isn't a Big Ten district, but it's one of our neighboring districts, and Charlotte are 6 hours, 55 minutes, and Charlotte is 7. Miami-Dade is 7, Palm Beach is 7 hours, 15 minutes, Brevard is 6 hours, 45 minutes, Hillsborough, Broward, and Polk are 7 hours. So, the folks that get paid to study this stuff have laid out their case for why it would be beneficial for the district to receive or to have more student time. I even have a report from a couple years ago that was done. The previous superintendent and the board want, because some of them are still on the board, the union to collaborate with us in recognizing that this should be an interest for all of us. I've heard loud and clear from TALC that they don't believe this is a issue that collective bargaining is necessary for. I don't disagree. However, we have a common interest in student achievement, which I know is one of the interests, and this would improve student achievement. So we've now been put in a position because TALC does not want to really enter even into negotiations regarding this issue, that the superintendent could impose this, which reluctantly would more than likely be painted as something they are making us do. That is not what interest-based bargaining and collaboration is supposed to be all about. So that's simply the case I'm stating. If you can all get on board, it would be great. I'm not even gonna put an option up there. We basically know what the option is, which would be 5 minutes a period each day, which amounts to, over the period of a school year, 14 days of more time with students. That's significant. So that is our case. Before we move on I don't want to bog down on this issue. We need to move on from chapter 7 so we can get to 10. But I needed to state that case because, and I see hands up, but I thought the union had already stated their case.
So it's interesting. So we've been at this amount of student contact time for a considerable period of time, correct? And in that time, we have excelled as a district, correct? We have been a B district, an A district, all with that student contact time. There's nothing that the people who come up with this idea, who quite honestly sit in a room and are getting paid a lot more than most of us, all of us, and are paid to come up with ideas. There is no guarantee this will fix anything. There is just no guarantee this will fix anything. And in fact, I think if the people in those positions wanted to get a more realistic experience of what it's like and what the extra 5 minutes would be like, maybe they could leave the throne rooms and come into the schools one day a quarter and sub.
I just want to do a norm check and remind us all that we are all here to assume good intentions.
We are, but I do not feel this will positively impact employee morale. I just don't. And what I honestly believe is you are looking for cover from us on a decision you know people will not like, so when they call, you can say the following: well, the union agreed to it. I believe student contact time is important, but I also believe we did well before we thought about extending the time. Maybe there are other ideas, like not having 200 openings, like paying a livable wage, like getting the right amount of counselors, getting the right amount of psychologists, getting the right amount of OT and PT, giving people a wage they can work one job on, as we linger 50th in the nation out of 51, and 42nd in funding. I mean, this reminds me of the Chotsky piece I once saw that says, beatings will continue until morale improves. We are just going to give you more time and more time and more time and more time until scores improve. So, yeah, that's me. And Kerr may wanted to say something, and I know Shay did. No, it's not.
So my first question is, you said it would add 30 minutes, so 5 minutes per class. However, at the high school level, we are 7 classes, so that would be 35 minutes.
Correct.
So how are you gonna come up with 35 minutes when you're only extending the day by 30 minutes?
We would be extending it by 35, sorry, Chef.
Okay, so that would actually be 210 then? So then my next question.
Actually, the proposal I have is 7 period days, 7-hour student day, 7:05 to 2:05. And I'm intrigued by the fact that you want to know about the details.
Well, I guess my next question would be, how long would the class periods be? Because you can't extend every class period by 5 minutes, and we're already pushed on seat minutes.
Okay, so let me go through this. This was prepared for me, okay? These aren't. So 6 times 52-minute periods equals 315 minutes, or 5 hours and 15 minutes of instruction time.
Okay, you're talking about 6 classes, we have 7 classes.
One block of planning time equals 52 minutes plus 15 minutes after school from 2:05 to 2:20 p.m. and 15 minutes before school from 6:50 to 7:05 equals 82 minutes, or 1 hour and 22 minutes of planning time every day. That's what you currently have. Is that accurate?
We have 47 minutes right now. And then, but I'm gonna tell you right now, that morning and afternoon planning you're talking about, it doesn't happen. We have duties, we have to.
And just so you know, we
Yeah, I understand.
really track it. So if they have duties, it's not planning, so you will not be able to meet the criteria. But the people down here don't know because they're not in buildings.
So I'll give you an example of my school. My school time is 6:40 to 2:10. At 6:55, we start with kids. Some people start earlier because they have other things that are going on. Our first grade planning teachers, they start earlier. So they're not getting that planning time in the morning. Right now, we're a 1:35 dismissal. There is not one teacher, other than maybe me, because I do second floor dismissal, that is not back from their duty station before 1:50 to 1:55. So we're tight on planning minutes to begin with. My next question would be, if you are extending the student day, it appears you are extending the teacher time. And is that something that's going to be compensated for?
Okay, Rob?
So, as your leadership has indicated, we are not bargaining the teacher day, the length of the teacher day. So that's what makes it non-bargainable.
Okay.
We're not talking about extending teacher time.
But you are.
We are.
The times that you're presenting, that is extending our current contract of teacher time.
Your contact time with students, correct, not the hours that you work. You're still going to be working 7.6 hours a day. You would just have students more during that day.
Okay, so let me ask another question then.
Okay, well, hold on, because I do have Carl that also would like to speak, so if you don't mind, okay?
Okay. No, I just want to say logistically how this is working. There's no option up there.
Right.
So
Yeah, yeah.
Shane's asking me questions about.
There's just,
It's just.
trying to get more story.
Yeah.
Trying to get more
I
story.
put an option up there, she wanted to ask questions about it.
Sure.
I really have a question because I'm sorry I had to step out. But after school duties, I'm kind of at a loss, and maybe, but I just know I don't have any after school duties for my teachers. Unless it's like now the security folks that have a supplement or something of that nature, and not many of those really. So I don't know what those I'm just curious about what those after school duties are. Because I really don't know. I'm only at one place, one out of 15 places.
Okay. Okay. So, Shay?
So every teacher in my building has a morning duty and an afternoon duty. It could be at the restrooms, it could be the bus ramp, it could be parent pickup, it could be student parking lot. There is not one person in my building that does not have a duty. I don't know how other schools do it. We did not have this many years ago, but this has started. And honestly, most of those positions in the afternoon are needed.
I don't have any of those duties, so I can only talk about respect to what we have.
Hold on, I've got Iris and go over there. Iris and then somebody over here. Amy, you want?
No.
No, thank you.
So I'm just curious if we're extending the time that the students are here past 2:05, so when there are parent-teacher conferences as well, that would also mean that teachers would have to stay later. So that's just an additional comment on that. Thank you.
Okay. And then we're go ahead, Lewis will go back to Shay.
Also with that, correct me if I'm wrong, but there was a law that was signed stating that, I forget which year it's supposed to happen. 2026, where high schools throughout the state cannot start before 8:30. So then now we're talking about ending the school day at 3:40.
But right now, we're bargaining for FY '25.
So, I know that it was brought up, names of school districts that have longer school days than ours. And I only was able to write down a few, and in the time that people were talking while I was listening, I did go online and attempt to look up their work days. So like in Charlotte County, for example, the student day is 7 hours, but the Charlotte teachers work an 8.5-hour day with a 30-minute lunch. Miami-Dade, the teachers work a 7-hour day, a 7-hour and 20-minute day, but they're only able to teach like up to 5 classes, and I was trying to find out bell schedules. I didn't have time to go look at the others, so I know that you say that we have the least amount of minutes in the student day, but you didn't share the number of hours that the teachers in those other districts work, nor are we looking at the salary of those other districts, because if you're working a longer day, you may be making more money. I know Collier and Charlotte do pay more than we do.
So I have all that for you. Collier, 7.5-hour day. This is the teachers.
Okay.
With a 35-minute lunch. Miami-Dade, 7.5 with a 30-minute lunch. Palm Beach, 7.5, 30-minute lunch. Brevard, 8-hour day with a 30-minute lunch. Pinellas, 7.5, 30-minute lunch. Orange, 7.5 with a 30-minute lunch.
Same as Pinella.
Yeah.
So Pinella, Orange, yeah.
Duval, 7, what does 7 1/3 mean? Anyway, with a 30-minute lunch. I guess, yeah. Weird. Hillsborough, 8 hours with a 30-minute lunch. Charlotte, 8.5-hour day with a 30-minute unpaid lunch. The rest are paid. Broward, 7.5 with a 30-minute lunch. And Polk, 7 3/4 day, paid lunch equivalent to the time of a student lunch, which I don't have, so I don't. Which I'm assuming is a period, whatever the length of their periods are. Yes. Right. So that's what I have. And then I already went through what their student days are like. So that's it, other than us and Pinellas, they're more than 6.5. Just to illustrate why we believe this is a significant interest is during a 7.5-hour student-teacher day, teachers are in front of students for 4 hours and 42 minutes in Lee County. which is 63% of the teacher's day.
Or person.
Can you repeat what you just said?
During a 7.5-hour teacher day, and I realize ours is 7.6, teachers are in front of their students for 4 hours and 42 minutes, which is approximately 63% of the teacher's day.
Okay, so that's how much a single teacher is in front of students, but how much time are students in front of a teacher?
I do too. I don't have that here.
Do you understand what I'm saying though?
Yeah.
Jill did it, she knows.
Okay. Questions, comments, clarification? You said 4 hours and 42 minutes, Ross?
Correct.
Questions, comments,
Okay,
clarification?
I may have an answer to that question.
Okay.
So, after subtracting 55 minutes for lunch and passing, students are in class for 335 minutes, or 5 hours and 35 minutes.
This would increase it to 6.
Would increase it to?
Just bear with me a second. Six hours and 5 minutes.
For that clarification? Jill?
I just wanted to point out that of all the schools that you listed, Rob, there's about 10 of them or so. All of them have more lunch than us, except for Polk. I pulled up their bell schedules. They have the minimum 25-minute lunch for students, which is the equivalent of our lunch. But in these other districts, they do have a longer lunch for their teachers.
Okay, Amy? I just wanted to point out that I don't know how elementary and high schools run, but in middle school, kids come on campus at 9:20, and from 9:20 to 9:45, they are in the classroom with the teacher. We just have to wait for buses to get there, which is why we are not instructing. So our school starts at 9:45, and also our teachers take the students to the lunchroom at 4:15 if the buses have not arrived. So they have from 4 o'clock to 4:15, they also have students in front of them that have not gone to the bus yet. So we don't have that much of a morning time or an afternoon time. Any other questions, comments, clarification, something you want to add to the story, data?
We need a 15-minute caucus, please.
Okay, thank you.
May I ask a question first? What are you asking?
You mentioned secondary, but you never told us the middle school time. You only
Can you clarify just high school?
Middle school, I know is 6.25 is the amount of,
But you said you want to extend secondary, which would mean you would extend middle school.
correct.
So what would that day look like? You said 7:05 to 2:05 for high school, you didn't tell us.
I don't have it, and I apologize, I don't have that schedule.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know. Thank you.
Okay, 15 minutes? So I got 4:42 on this, I got 5 o'clock, 17 minutes? 5 PM, okay. We'll do that. Yes. office report from TALC?
We do.
All right, I cannot wait to capture your great thoughts.
Oh, man. Put me on the spot. They're thoughts, I wouldn't say they're great thoughts, great thoughts. So, we are interested in discussing, an option to increase the student day, student contact time. Hey, look, there's my 5 p.m. alarm.
Excellent.
We're here, make the minutes reflect
I
that.
completely forgot to do.
We are here. But it has to come with a component that increases not just the teacher day paid, but a longer lunch. We look back at our interests: student achievement, staff morale, mental health, retention. And without specifics, what we hear is a plan that effectively robs minutes from other places and tries to put them in to increase contact. And maybe on paper it works. We have high schools where kids are eating in the classroom, in the morning, eating in classrooms at a time that's supposed to be teacher planning time. That's not uninterrupted planning time. We also can't teleport kids from one place to another. You may be able to take off 30 seconds here and there for transition time, but it doesn't effectively work in the schools. So I guess we'd like to challenge you to reevaluate the plan. Include a longer lunch. All the schools that you mentioned, all the districts, even just 10 minutes longer. Our folks are sharing stories with, after they get kids into the lunchroom, they have maybe 12 minutes to, and we've heard this before. And again, it may look good on paper, but the job's so much more than the bell schedule. And I guess that's it. What I'd really like to do is let's move on to coverage, get back on track, and see if we can finish this up, because we have to ratify this in 18 days.
Okay, thank you. Rob, you wanted to comment before we do that?
Yeah, I agree, and I didn't mention this to you this morning, Chris, so I apologize. But I didn't want to move from chapter 7 without talking about it again. I'm intrigued by your response. I'm also, I think we're willing to discuss a longer lunch in some way. So, but doing that tonight would involve really a bunch of just concepts and ideas. So let us put paper to pencil. I don't know if we could do that before Wednesday, but potentially we can. And see where we can get. So I'm willing to table this until we potentially meet again.
Want to go to class coverage then?
Yes.
Okay.
I concur. I don't know if you want to start off.
Go ahead.
Okay.
You had
So, in reaction to last meeting's conversation regarding the MOU and class coverage, I drafted a document that may not satisfy all of the constituencies that spoke at that meeting, but I thought captured some of what we discussed, and I'll put it up here in a second. It really focuses on volunteers and what principals should take into account. And then it deals with special instruction. I'll just tell you right away that I deleted the current language and just basically said that special instructional shall not be required to provide classroom coverage. So, but I'll put it up and it'll be easier to see. Just as a caveat, my team hasn't seen this either. We talked about it briefly beforehand, but they haven't seen it either.
Okay. Okay, so he has put his language up on the board, Robert put the language up on the board about classroom coverage.
Oh, you're gonna
It's smaller.
Okay. Problem is they can't get it all out.
Right. So when he took out the language for special instructional All together?
Yes, down here. It added that line.
Special instructional staff shall not be required to provide classroom coverage or to cover vacant positions. Okay. And what other language was changed?
I added language up on the top.
Okay, the language that was changed under the
It's not
voluntary.
changed, it's just
Oh.
added.
The added language, I'm sorry, that was under the voluntary assignment, says the building principal may take into consideration availability, seniority, certification, and performance when assigning coverage. If no volunteers exist, the building principal may assign coverage to employees in an equitable fashion. Okay,
That was in the MOU.
and that was in the MOU then, okay? Questions, comments? Christina?
I would like to address the special instruction again. I know you're not talking about special areas, we're talking about special instruction. I don't think, or somewhere in there, can we also say that they should not even be asked, it should not be requested? Because I don't think the special instructionist needs to be asked every day if they could potentially cover a class. They shouldn't be in a position where they have to turn it down on a daily basis.
Right.
I think there was language in the MOU like that. I mean, I'd have to go back and look at it, but I do believe there was something about should be requested or something like that.
Do we just have it again?
People yell at us.
And I'm reminded that I think we took that language out because there were special instructional that were upset they didn't get the opportunity, so.
Heather?
So part of my question when we're looking at that, they should not be required, which is fine, but if they so choose, they would be paid their hourly rate. But when you say to not cover vacant positions, what does that look like? Because then you've got, like, for instance, when I was by myself in school, you told me the 450 other kids, if one of them wants to kill themselves, I don't help them.
This is a starting point.
I know, that's what I'm saying. I would, so my question to you then is adding language where we're talking about when you are covering a vacant position, having that language back where every 5 days you're getting there, because with our current pay, you're not getting any more counselors or anybody else at that rate.
So you want to put an option
To add the language.
This would be option, if I could,
Yes, option one, yep. Put that over here.
And then we can.
Option one. Option, class coverage. We're gonna follow around, option.
Yeah, because there's some people on my team that have some nuance to it.
Sure, for special instructional. Or do you want me to say round up?
The whole thing is optional.
Okay, yeah.
But I think Jess wants to talk about the last paragraph.
For the special instructional, just looking at that and maybe the option to add the word classroom or instructional, vacant instructional positions, so that there is coverage when, so if, for example, a school nurse is out, another school nurse could cover a school nurse, but wouldn't be expected to cover second grade classroom.
So do you want to
Amend my option.
amend it?
Say that last sentence.
Special instructional can cover other special instructional.
Shall be limited to cover only
Only special
only other positions
vacancies in
within
their area.
within their area.
Special instructional can cover.
Other special instructional vacancies in their area.
Are we gonna use the process referred to above with volunteers first? Well,
Yeah,
I mean, yeah, no, I'm gonna just take, I appreciate like the start, like I've said many times, when I throw something up, this is a start and we can work from here, right? And so I'm appreciative, and I see some holes in it that, but when we're talking about the special instructional group, like let's say at Heather's school, they are short a counselor, right? Well, not anymore, but they were, at a time, they might have been short a counselor. So it would obviously, can I, as a counselor in another school, be on a rotation list to cover Heather's school? Are we also, because I know the nurses have a really good, and maybe the other kind of non-school-based special instructional group have a system. The nurses have a great system. They got it all worked out. They cover, no big deal. But for counselors, because they are school-based, it would have to be, if there's an opening at Heather's school, for her to cover both. So I don't know if we want to, I don't want to get too technical, but
Do you want another option? Do you want to talk about?
I'm happy with editing this option as we go and coming up with a work product as opposed to every little thing we want to say, generating another option and then us combining stuff and getting confused. Another hole I see is special area teachers at elementary schools. So they either, so maybe Tina, you could talk about this, but it's my understanding there's one of two ways that happens. Either everybody, like it's art that day and the art teacher gets a few students extra in every one of the third grade classes because they had to split a third grade class. Then there's another method whereby I think they just skip it, right? They just skip that, hang on, let me give it to Tina because she knows. Sorry for like standing up and walking around, but I need to.
For us,
You talk.
for us, if one of our teachers are out, then the other special teachers are expected to cover that class. The sub does not pick up. So if I'm out today and technology has a break in the schedule, they come and cover my class. Or music might have a break, they come and cover my class when I'm out. And sometimes it's 2 and 3 and 4 teachers among our group that have to go and cover that day if the sub does not pick up.
Yeah, I think that's what I was trying to say. There's.
So how, and I'll let Ben speak, but how is C1 or C2 not covering that?
They say it doesn't.
Yeah, they say it doesn't. When I say they, I mean some building level
Because it
administrators.
says classroom versus.
This is elementary teacher.
Yeah, you're right.
Tina, is the concern typically when one of the special area or enrichment teachers is out? Not so much if like a third grade teacher is out and kids are split, the concern is more so when one of the enrichment teachers is out, then you really do end up absorbing, in most cases, an entire class or a large portion of the class, not just a grade level teacher being out.
I've got Anna and then Rob.
No, Kevin.
Anna and then Kevin.
If there are any,
Yeah. Go ahead now, Anna. Yes.
I was going, well, to answer Rob's question about why the language C1 and 2 doesn't cover that, I think we've always been told something about the special areas, especially PE being able to take a larger amount of students than the typical class size of, that I would have. So, and the same thing, like if the art teacher's out, whoever had art for that day would typically either go to PE or sometimes they combine art and music. But I think it's the, something to do with the class size is why they said those teachers were not qualified, even though they were taking, or not eligible, even though they were taking on those extra students for the entire day.
Okay.
If there are any locations still doing that, please reach out. We'll work through it and we'll find a way to make it work. I believe that we can compensate during that time. So if any teacher is out there or administration is saying differently, please reach out and we'll try to change that.
and
Kurt, thank you.
You can include Mr. Calfee's cell phone number there so they can. No, I'm glad to hear that because that was always our interpretation of the language, that they should be paid. So that should put this issue there.
Thank you. Kevin?
Yeah, I want to thank Ben and Tina for saying what I meant to say, which is there's a difference between a third grade teacher being out and the enrichment person being out. But I think in either case, like if the third grade teacher is out and Tina has a few more kids, she deserves to be compensated. It's just the formula by which or they just go to their special where the class is going. Or they could go, yeah, again, they could go to their same special, right? This is where my lack of elementary experience. But I think it's not by, I think we don't have a unified method by which we do that. I think some schools do what Anna is saying, where like, if you're a third grade teacher, a kid and you're put in my room, and your teacher was supposed to go to art, all those kids still go to art. And then I think there are places where, if you're a third grade student in my room, you were supposed to go to art, but I'm going to PE, you go to PE because you're with me. So I think that's and maybe Ben's gonna talk about this, and that's maybe the crux of not having a unified idea of how it happens. And maybe us having a unified, like we say with some things, you know, the first option is to do this. The next option is to do that.
Yeah, I think to like Anna's point, typically the kids should still hopefully continue on their normal, wherever they're supposed to go, but I don't know if it always happens that way. And so then you may end up with more students on an occasion for a period or two, depending upon what grade level the teacher's out on. Typically, I think the issue really is when you have a special area teacher that's out for the entire day. It's all day long, you're absorbing, in some cases, an entire class or a half a class if you split. So I think that becomes that's a lot at that point. I think typically over the one teacher being out, the kids really would typically go where they were supposed to anyway, and it shouldn't really cause a burden on the rest of the teachers. On the special enrichment, whatever it is that you call it your elementary school, I think it's more so when the special ed teacher's out. That's a lot of kids that are being absorbed by those teachers for the entire day.
Okay, questions, comments, another option, this option?
They have a nurse here, we talked about that. Yeah, they do. Oh, yeah.
Heather?
Right.
Okay, I rewrote part of your option, and I can hand it to you for copying, but let me read it first.
Okay, go ahead, yes, thank you.
So, special instructional will not be required to provide classroom coverage. If they choose to do so, they will be paid their hourly rate and follow the outlined procedure for instructional staff. Special instructional that covers a vacant position will be paid their daily rate for every 5 days worked. Days are not required to be continuous. There's some grammar there. Special instructional will not be required to provide classroom coverage. If they choose to, they will be paid their hourly rate and will follow the outlined procedure for instructional staff. Special instructional that covers a vacant position will be paid their daily rate for every 5 days worked. Days are not required to be continuous.
Okay, Amy?
Just clarification on that option, I believe that you're saying special instructional who cover another vacant special instructional position, right? Like position. Okay.
And I'm sorry, we were looking at the so can you clarify that clarification?
Yes, I can. So I was just getting the clarification that where it said, where Heather said, special instructional that cover a vacant position will get their one day for every 5 days, right? so it's not just any vacant position, it is another like special instructional position.
Thank you.
But they may actually choose to cover a classroom position, and in such, they would get the hourly rate. There are two choices.
Correct, that was the first part, I was just clarifying the second part.
And while we're waiting to get the Jessica over there, I don't know if this is the appropriate place to talk about kind of guardrails on at least school counselor time, you know, because other parts of the special instructional bargaining unit are hired by the district and there's somebody down here. If, you know, somebody gets a little strange with the nurse and wants them to do something they're not supposed to do, a call comes from the district and says, hey, don't do it. If a counselor is told that if a kid is in crisis and they're supposed to be in the hall, the counselor is told to go to the hall and put the kid with somebody else. So I think we also need, and I don't know if this is the place for it, because it's not coverage. And so I don't want to do what we often do, which is muddy and put non-coverage stuff in with coverage, but I think we need to talk about some guardrails around the counselors and the time there as well.
Okay. So right now you're right, it's not about coverage, but maybe it can be something, I will capture something about that, but some, another topic. Guardrails for counselors' time.
Yeah, because they're the only part of special instructional that is school hired.
I guess the only question I would have for clarification then would be, so when you're talking about classroom coverage, you're splitting classes and you're still doing instructional things with the students. So what I'm envisioning is that, would you say that they can opt to, if a school nurse opts to cover a classroom and is compensated, she's unable to do any part of the existing job. So we would be.
You wouldn't believe the phone calls we got from members of the special instructional group that told us we were infringing upon their right to earn extra money, when we had the fact that they could not cover classrooms. I was surprised myself because I know the jobs that the special instructional groups do, and nurses have, and all of them have a full day's worth of activities every day. But we did hear from them, and they were very upset at us that we, especially when there was a $1,000 bonus and there was all this money, that we infringed on their right to make additional money by covering. I know.
They do receive additional money by the nature of their position as special instructional too. So I guess my only concern, and I'm just thinking this off the top of my head, is how are they doing then their position? And like, how are we making sure that the job that they're hired to do is complete? If they're covering in an area that doesn't allow them to do that. And
So, one of the things that was brought up is, you know, counselors by nature, because this is more our school counselors than anything with this. They have a big portion that were teachers, and they're seeing, because they are school-based, they're seeing their colleagues drowning. So it's more, besides just the money, feeling like they're able to support the team. I understand and agree with you in many aspects. It would be very difficult to show how you're completing your job requirements plus doing this, but that is a portion of it. And there's not a lot of the same kind of mechanisms for counselors or any other special instructional staff to make additional money. Like, as far as when you talk about supplements through the district, there's like 3, that's that.
Jessica, and then Carl, and then Shay.
Agreed, and I recognize that as well. I think it's challenging. But I would say if we say that they are not required to, like we're saying we're giving them the option, not being required to do anything, but then like the open option to do. So I think if we're saying you aren't even required to do it, we're not going to include you in this, that we, there are options to cover. We made an arrangement for them to cover in their area of specialty, so there still are opportunities to provide coverage, but within their area of expertise. I mean, what we're saying is, here's your areas of expertise, this is what you cover, but then if you don't want to, you can, but you can't be required. So it just seems a little all over the place. Okay. All right.
I just think that it comes down to language where I think whether you're gonna say discouraged from or other options, but I think what happened last year, I did hear that because there are sometimes I can hear people say, I want to help, but I'm not allowed to. So I think though, if you put language, I don't know how to craft it, but I think language where they're not denied the opportunity. And I'll just tell you what happens with some of the special instruction, because they'll say, well, I can't come here 5 days, so why can't I help? It's not like I'm here every day. And those are just some of the comments and things that are sometimes made. So I agree with what you said, that needs to be the primary focus. But I think that having language that will potentially allow if there's a desire. And I think that seems to be, would be like a compromising type of a piece. Making it clear that you have that. But heck, sometimes I'll give you another one. There are assistant principals that sometimes say, I wish I could get because I'm just being honest with you, who said they wish they could actually do some of the coverage things, because they cover anyway at times. So just that language that allows the opportunity.
I've got Shay and then Helen and then Rob. So I kind of want to answer Jeff's question a little bit, or kind of provide some insight here. Everyone in the TALC bargaining agreement, so special instruction, or fall under TALC bargaining, is guaranteed a planning period every day. So what they would be doing is giving up that planning period, not necessarily doing their job. I mean, granted, I know counselors, my job, there's a lot of us that don't take planning, we don't take lunch half the time, but essentially, they are entitled to a plan. So like at my school, we had to change it to where ESE push-in teachers had a big planning period. They have a planning period. That's the only period they can be asked to cover. I don't know how that would look with special instructional, but it's not essentially that they're not doing their job, it's that during that planning period that they're giving up, that they are able to do coverage if they so desire to. Okay, Helen, Rob, and then Jessica.
I have a question for clarification. While I know these individuals are not falling under special instructional, just what process or protocol would you imagine they would follow, such as the deans, reading coaches, peer collaborative teachers, some of the individuals who have more release time in their schedule than a normal classroom teacher? Would they follow the same protocol as special instructional, or would they follow the protocol above?
I think so, and that's another interesting idea, right? There are some people, oh, sorry.
We have Rob.
So a couple of things. We had language in the MOU that addressed this exact issue, so we could steal that language. But I need to say this. We're not currently paying for this. So if we're going to do that, there's one pot of money. And I was just told that by the CFO. So she also has the language that is in the MOU if you want to put that up. I want to put that up there as an option potentially.
Okay.
Not potentially, as an option.
What part of the MOU, bro?
Amy?
It's on page 3 of 5, and it's number 2, just refers to conflicting duties, which goes back to the conversation that we were having before. And basically just says that your coverage may not conflict with regularly assigned duties. Employees are still responsible for completion of their regularly assigned duties when providing classroom coverage. So just spoke to what a couple of the concerns were, that, well, how can we do this and still do whatever it is that you're assigned to do? And that language kind of makes it clear. You can choose to provide coverage, but if you do, you still have to ensure that your other duties are being performed.
You see it?
Yes.
No good.
Thank you.
Okay. Kevin?
I want to address the how are we going to pay for it. We've had consistently in this district 200 open positions. Clearly. Because how are we paying for any coverage right now? That's not coming out of bargaining authority. And coverage gets paid. We have over 200 positions consistently in this district every day since day one. Shay said there are 600 and something positions, including anticipated positions posted for next year. Clearly, there is a savings in the shortage. So I think we should really look at the savings from the shortage and start using that money over here.
Jessica?
I understand the planning piece. I also understand the concerns that I work with every day with special instructional, that sometimes they're viewed as being free all the time because they don't sit in front of students.
Yeah.
So I can get behind all of this because obviously I want to support special instructional, make sure they have the same opportunities. Also want to make sure our students are supported. I think one thing I would ask is, because of the unique nature of many of their positions, if that there is coverage, that the supervisor is involved in that discussion, because sometimes the building supervisor, most times is not the direct supervisor for those individuals. So if we can involve the supervisor and collaborate, I would appreciate that consideration.
And Kurt brought that up before you went to talk. It's
Okay.
like the nurse had a small lead.
Yeah. Definitely. Kurt, thank you.
I'm about to muddy the waters. I know, I'm telling you in advance. So we had this hang up in years past because the title of the provision says instruction during this learning. And it's so much bigger than that. In my mind, it's any time you miss planning. Because I'm reminded about proctoring tests. You know, if you have to give up your planning to proctor tests, it's not typically paid under the instruction during missed planning because you're not giving instruction, but you're still missing your planning time. So I would like some of the language to reflect that it's not just instruction during missed planning, it's just missing planning period.
Iris?
You're the only one.
You're a good guy. I don't know, but a lot don't check.
I think just for clarification too, it's important to note that a lot of the special instructional are not just missing planning, but they're covering vacancies in their department for months at a time. So we need to consider that as well.
Rob?
Yeah. Iris, you talking about what we just talked about, or is this a different group of people? Special instructional, right? Oh, okay. All right.
Okay. Questions, comments, or options, Rob? Or Rob? Kevin?
Yeah, I waited till you got my name right. So I'm just gonna be honest with you. If compensating more people to cover because the district can't hire enough people now has to come out of the 30% reduction in bargaining authority over last year, I can't have an agreement tonight on this. I just can't. It's 10 million short of last year. You know my feelings on that. And now the nickel and dime coverage we're gonna pay people that we haven't paid people before. There's one pot of money, when again, there's 200 vacancies at, not including benefits, 200 vacancies times 50,000, just assuming it's a new teacher's salary, quickly is $10 million. Plus, a little bit more for benefits. So there's at least a $10 million savings over the year related to the 200 vacancies. And I bet if we increase coverage to this group, it won't cost $10 million.
trying to capture it, Kevin, so what I think my fault here. Compensation comes from the VA, TALC is unable to
Have agreement tonight.
have agreement tonight.
I don't even know how we would figure out how much money to set aside.
Savings from shortages,
Yeah.
question mark. Does that work for you?
Yeah.
Thank you.
10 million.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Questions, comments, clarifications, Rob?
Yeah, so, I think everybody knows this, but obviously up until this year, coverage was paid for Messer. And then, based on the reversion back to the previous language for fiscal year '24, which is what we're currently in, the budget for coverage was based on the current language. The 5% or $20 million as board authority was based on an anticipated budget, not including some new coverage language, which really came up late in the game here. Last time we talked, tonight. Now granted, we didn't talk about coverage until then, so I understand, but even in the language I drafted, it didn't include necessarily an additional amount because it wasn't allowing those folks to cover, because that's what I thought, Heather, and I apologize, I thought that's where we were headed. Now we're headed down a road of sort of an option. I think Jessica hit on some good points, which is special instructional teachers already receive an additional sum of pay for their particularized roles, which they deserve. I'm not saying they don't. But the budget, to include the current board authority, didn't anticipate this. And I know Kevin's presenting an option potentially where there may be money, but we can't make a decision on that tonight either. So that's where we're at.
Okay, Kevin, then Jill?
I think it's interesting that whenever we bring up money for stuff like the psychologists, they make more. Why do they make more? Because it's very convenient, because one of two things happens. Oh, you make 10,000 more because we can't find psychologists. Right up until it's time I need you to cover, and then you make 10,000 more because I need you to cover, and you're getting paid more than everybody else. This is a consistent theme that runs through supplements. Either we're paying for the supplement, especially with the special instructional group, because we've all determined on the outside market, they could theoretically make a bunch more, and we're giving them more because they're harder to find and keep with us. Or we're giving them more money because you're going to have to cover for people, and you really should be making what a teacher makes. So again, to bring that up now, like, oh, well, they make more money. Yeah, because we can't find it. And we got to pay them more money, which is why we have a special instructional pay scale that starts $4 or $5 grand higher than everybody else, because we can't find it. Now you say the $4 or $5 grand, well, it's not really for that. It's because you might have to cover. I mean, you can't have it both ways. So when we're talking about coverage, that would be additional money, not the money we're already giving you that we say we give you because we can't find you. And again, if you have to go back and ask for the additional, coverage for the special, this is essentially the special instructional group where the debt will be, and it will be 1 day's pay for every 5 days covered non-consecutively. I don't even know how to estimate that, other than to ask the different groups from the special instructional group how many times that happened, and multiply it by average daily rate. I'm not sure if you need to ask to spend the savings from unfilled positions from the board, or if you can just spend the money from unfilled positions from the board, and you could just do that. So either way, I mean, again, I don't even know what the number would be. What would you estimate that number to be to come off of the 30% reduction over last year's number?
Jill?
I just want to say that Kevin covered a lot of my talking points, but I think it's important that I understand special instructional makes more money. Like Kevin said, it's because we can't find them. It's because they have additional licensures, degrees, beyond a bachelor's degree. But are they told at the time of hire that, yes, you're making this salary and you're going to be expected to cover vacancies? I don't think that that's something that is told to them. I think they are coming in with an anticipated caseload of students. And in some cases, they're covering more and more students. And students since COVID have more and more mental health needs than they did before. And so our counselors and our social workers, our nurses, our psychologists, people who work with students in those capacities are dealing with more and more issues. And it's getting harder and harder for them to do their jobs with the caseloads they have and to support the needs of our students. And when the students aren't getting that support, you see it in the classroom every single day, because you see the kids that are having mental health issues because they're struggling to manage their behaviors, or even some of our ESE kids who aren't getting some of the same level of coaching and support that they need to be successful. That's trickling into our classrooms, and it makes it much harder for us to teach. So again, yes, we're paying them more, but like Kevin said, it's not because we expect them to pick up, and I don't think when they're hired, they anticipate having to do the job of 2 other people because of the vacancy.
Thank you. We got Amy and then Jessica.
Was that in response to that? Because I can,
Okay,
no, go first.
Okay, thank you.
So I just want to clarify in response to that about extra pay. My comment was very specific to instructional classroom coverage. So when we talk about caseloads and work and, you know, those things that they do get paid for, absolutely rightly so. They are critical members of our school community. My concern was very direct to doing something that was not their position. So I heard an option for them to, for coverage that Heather presented in their instructional area. I heard that we would do something that they would only cover in their instructional area. So those are the things I'm understanding. My comment was very specific to saying all these things about their instructional area, knowing how valuable they are, knowing that they are the only ones that can do their job, and then covering a classroom. It was very specific to that.
Okay, thank you, Jessica. Amy?
I was just gonna say, so I think we're hearing and receiving all of the comments. I think in order to have some additional discussion on it, we would need some more information, right? So the question was, well, how do we even estimate that? Well, we would estimate that by what happened before when we had it, because we did have it for a whole period of time, whole year. So I think we need to go back and pull some of that information and then maybe have some additional information to be able to discuss when we come back together.
So just have to gather, because they don't have Article 7 on here. Oh, it is 10, okay. I don't hear the as well.
Yeah. Go ahead. I'll go ahead. Let's shake it.
So Amy, the last time that we did have that, wasn't that the time that we were paying the additional $75 and that type of stuff? So would you exclude that from your data?
Yeah, I'm talking about the data just for special instructional to special instructional. That's what I'm talking about. And in that particular one, it was 1 day for 5 days. 1 day of their hourly rate. So that's the specific thing that I'm talking about here. That would be new to the ballgame. Right? I don't believe that anything else kind of that we talked about or that is up there is new to the ballgame for, moving forward besides this one.
Okay.
So that's what I was referring to.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, anything else?
I got something, Amy.
Sure.
I'd like to throw another option up. Could you remind me the numberings of these options?
I'm sorry, say it one more
Could you
time.
remind me how we've numbered these options so far? I just
Okay,
wanna
we
make
just
sure I'm
have
not
one
lost.
option here. It was amended, and then Heather had an option, so we have 2.
Okay, that's what I wanted to make sure.
Okay.
I have a third option about bringing back the conflicting duties language from the MOU. I think that came from Dr. Desamore.
Okay,
So you just want your option to say that, bring back conflicting
Well, yes.
duties?
No, that was her option, I have a different option.
That's your option.
She didn't say it was an option.
But I would.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought I heard you
Bring
say,
back conflicting duties. Okay, I like it.
thank you.
Option three.
Then option 4,
Hold on, let Mark get that up there.
okay.
We'll give you time to form it in writing first, right?
I'm sorry.
We'll give you time to make your option in writing first.
Oh, and rhyming verse, oh, we'll see. I'm gonna need a lot more time then.
Or if you could sing it. That will.
Okay, we got option three, so option four.
Yeah, none of that's gonna work. None of that's gonna work. So I just want to amend, this, as I'm thinking out loud, this kind of takes, the working during this planning instead of instruction during this planning. I'd like to change the word instruction to working in the header, 10.04.
10.04.
Change instruction during this planning to working during this planning. Yep. And there's probably a better word, but that's the word that I came up with at this moment.
Change instruction to planning.
Okay, the title is instruction during this planning. I would like it to read working during this planning.
Working during this planning.
Again, there's probably a better word, that's the word that's there.
Okay.
And in addition to that, Amy, in item B, I would like to, and you've got it up there, I'd like to delete the phrase, the length of the period covered. That phrase, the length of the period covered, and change it to missed planning time.
Delete blank period covered.
Yep.
To miss planning time.
Yes.
Okay. Amy, you have a comment? Okay. Robbie, you have
Yeah, I think it is, but maybe we can.
Okay.
Amy,
Amy, yeah. Just had a question for the group, maybe to help all of us understand what types of things a person may be asked to do when they miss planning period, but it's not covering a classroom. I heard earlier, I think Curry said proctoring tests. Are there other things? Like what kind of things are we talking about?
Somebody help me out.
I think the largest interference is proctoring. And again, again, working, like he said, is not the best word because, like some of my colleagues said, I work all the time. So, we may have to get a finer word to define the idea that it's, covering a class or proctoring, but again, that's, Now Anna has something, hang on.
Anna?
I just didn't want to go first. Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Okay.
We did some processing time. What about MTSS meetings and IEPs during my planning?
Those shouldn't be during planning.
Rob?
I think there was already language around that. Not in this, about meetings. The language says, that's about like counting the meetings, like IEP meetings don't count, but that's a different issue that Anna's talking about. So I
It's
apologize.
not part of the class coverage. Okay, Anna, do you want to clarify that or?
No, I'm gonna move on.
Okay.
I was just gonna say, and Kerr kind of prefaced it with it might be muddy, his option, but if I working during this planning time, technically, if the end of the day from 3 o'clock to 3:15 is supposed to be counted towards my planning time and I'm having to work during it because I'm supervising students for dismissal, is that now me working during planning?
Rob?
I don't have an answer to that, but planning is working, so that's why we do need to find a better word. And my wife makes that clear to me.
Yes.
working during planning time? Like, what, is it this?
I said,
If I'm covering, or if I
if
have
I'm
students.
working during planning, like I still have students, I'm still supervising students, and it's supposed to be the planning time that's counting towards my total planning time. See, it got muddy.
Yeah.
Real quick.
Okay. So like Rob said, need to find a better word for working. And that could be student supervision. Well, that's what she's just talking about there, so that it's still money. So,
Do we want to work on an option in theory and clean up the language in labor management?
You got labor management on that.
I'm sorry, what you have, you want to do?
We do have labor management before bargaining on Wednesday, that's true.
Do you want to add something?
You want to tell it? Yeah.
Just to answer your question, Dr. Amy, is in elementary, we do have teachers during their planning time teach students that are below level, and then they're paid for their planning after contract hours. So if that makes sense. So that's an example of they're being paid for their planning, but not for coverage.
Thursday, Friday. I'll do Thursday, Friday.
right, where do we want to go next? We want to do a straw design, test something? What would we like to do? You need more time, caucus, what would you like?
I think, for me anyway, the financial part of this weighs heavy.
Okay.
And I think we're right, we need to kind of capture what we mean and worry about language second. And so I think for us, it's like, if you're not doing duties that are planning during your planning time, perhaps there's compensation involved. Now, what we call that, whether we call that working, instruction, yada, yada, that I think is the overarching kind of aspect of this, is if you are doing things during planning that is not planning, which, is planning for lessons and grading and doing other things, then we need to talk about the idea of compensation for that missed time. I think that's, and what we call it is irrelevant if we can all point back to, May 6th at, 5:52 p.m., we as a group came to consensus about what the kind of mid-rush is on this idea, kind of between the lines.
Anna?
I don't necessarily know exactly how to word this, but thinking of the way that planning is defined in Article 7, I would assume that a lot of this, we're talking about that continuous time that we have through day, like, my kids go to specials during that time. I would consider that time. However, I do think that as we continue to have conversations, and for me, to be honest, a lot of this came to light on the night that we talked about the PLC time, especially at the middle school, when we all sat down and kind of like, wait a minute, how is middle school getting an hour worth of PLC done? That's crazy how that's getting done. When we sat down and we all talked about the minutes of planning, there's a huge inequity across levels. I know that I do not get what is outlined in here, those minutes. I know that I do not get that on a daily basis, and have not all year, because of those things that I talk about outside of that continuous minute that has student supervision. The bus problem is not fixed. I have duties with students until 3:15, which is the end of my contract time, and that's when I no longer have students, but those minutes in there are mine, that's my time to where I should be planning, but I think this is just, we've had this problem for some time, so when we're talking about coverage during planning and what we're looking, what our true goal is, I think maybe defining that, is it that continuous part during the day? Or are we talking about, working during this planning, that's time that's still missed. So just as we continue conversations to clarify what our true intent is and what our goal here is, I think we may need to also look at some of that planning language.
Class coverage.
Right, we're working on Article 10 class coverage. I mean, we just went back to 7. I'm not disputing what Anna's saying. I mean, but I didn't think we were doing that during this session. I do want to reflect a little bit on what Kevin said. So, and something Amy said earlier, really the only change we're talking about financially is this, how we were going to, if we were to agree to language like was in the MOU for special instructional, otherwise, there's no other financial change to the language. Is that accurate? I'm just trying to, in my mind, get my arms around this.
With the exception of perhaps proctoring, I believe you're correct. And I was reminded that we have some language in Article 704 that talks about temporary changes in schedules.
Yeah.
And how testing programs is one of them. You're supposed to rotate them whenever possible, and some other things. And even there's inequities in that one as well, because first period is the one that suffers oftentimes in that. So we even have language that attempts to mitigate the damage, but proctoring would be the one absent, I think, that may have a physical impact.
Again, doing the class coverage, language to stay on topic.
Yeah, so we need to ascertain, based on past data, what we're talking about here with special instructional covering other special instructional and covering classes, right? I mean, yeah. Because that's what some of these options speculate about, so.
So is this something we want to bring back on Wednesday with data?
That's true.
It just sort of corrected me. They're able to cover classes now, so
Yeah.
that doesn't change, okay.
So bring back that on Wednesday. You want to add something, Kevin?
Yeah, and I think the proctoring component we're talking about is when it's not your class, right? Like when I was at Royal Palm, I had to give the state testing, and I proctored my class during my time that I was supposed to be with them. I think a lot of this comes up when it's makeup time, and we kind of have to get 2 kids from here and 2 kids from here and 5 kids from here. And then that inevitably only has people in secondary with first period planning have to be the ones that do the proctoring, because that's when, you don't want to start the test after lunch. That's not very smart for multiple reasons. So when we're talking about proctoring, especially for makeups, again, if it's the regular day of the test and everybody's doing their own proctoring and it's their own kids, that's just how the day is. I think the real point of proctoring here comes on the makeup days, and I honestly think that is even inequitable in that some schools, and we should maybe talk about testing coordinators at some point, some schools probably give more makeup exams than other schools, just based on student performance or retakes. And if you can only do it starting at 8 o'clock in the morning, the only people you can have proctor are your first period planning teachers, or your second period planning teachers, and your counselors and special instructional group. So I think even the proctoring is cut much finer than that, and we're talking about retakes and makeups. Chase, what?
Hold on. It's, Heather had her hand up, so.
Let Shay go first.
Let Shay first, okay.
Yeah, we'll go. Yeah.
Are you okay with that, Heather? Do you want to make your point before we let talk? Amy wants to go before the hot topics too. Okay, thank you. Is that all right with you guys?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
So Heather, Amy, and then caucus.
Just numbers wise, special instructional, you're looking at like, it's less than what, 330 people max? So if that's the holdup, like think about 25, like if we're 330 people are gonna pay cooks this, that's pretty sad. We don't get paid enough to really do what we budgeted.
Thank you. Okay, Amy?
Yeah, two things. I hear you. If it's 330 people, I don't know, but the deal is we should know. We have to know what the information is, and that's what I'm saying. We need to make sure that we know and understand what it is or what the magnitude could be of what we're agreeing to. So all I'm saying is that we just needed to have that information on the table. And then as Rob was saying before, I think he was reiterating, so what's new to the game? That was the one, but then the second thing that now is new based on what was just brought up was this concept of just the working part during planning as opposed to just the classroom coverage itself. That's the new too. And I'm not sure exactly how we would do that because we've not done that before, so that's just something that we're gonna have to put our minds around both between now and our next time.
Okay, good. Tell them you're not what she said?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, they call it caucus. How long do you need?
We're gonna caucus.
You're gonna caucus. How long do you need, sir?
15.
15? Rob?
We're fine.
15? I have 6:01. Do you want to make it 14 or do you want to make it 15? 16? 6:16.
17, 18.
6:16, I remember this.
Okay, have seats. Let's get our caucus reports going.
Tell if you call the caucus first, so we'll get your reports.
Is that me or you? Okay. I tapped at the same time, and I know my mic's not that loud.
Okay, go ahead.
So we discussed kind of the 4 options on the table, and kind of the fiscal impact. We did some math on the fly, as I always say, kind of dangerous. Just a kind of a maximum amount, as you look at the option, I believe it was option 2 on the 5 days. If we took, base salary for special instructional, multiplied it by 200, about 200 open positions or so, right? And what was your day, it came out that if a special instructional, if a special instructional employee covered every single day for the entire school year, and we're paid, everybody.
Every special instructional covered every day for the entire year.
It would be a little over $3 million, if you're paid 1 day for every 5 days. If we take the number of vacancies that we've had all year, approximately 200 or so, and multiply that by base salary and some benefits, we get a little over 12 million. So we feel like we have those savings there. And we discussed kind of the need for those data points that we mentioned earlier. And I think that's about it.
Okay, thank you. Rob?
So we similarly talked about the options. We also talked about an additional option, which I can add, which is regarding special instructional and the ability for, if it's an itinerant position and not a school supervised position, the supervisor and the principal would collaborate to determine if the special instructional should be eligible to cover a class. Because if the person has several assignments that they haven't completed, which, believe it or not, when we had ESSER money did happen, we don't want that person to be covering class. They should be completing their regular job. And also, I have to ask her, because of the words you used at the end of your summation just now, the data points, what are you referring to?
I think it was the number of special instructional folks that were covering other special instructional positions, I believe was the data point that was mentioned. And the cost, yes. Thank you.
Rob, can I do some clarification on your other option? Says if employee is itinerant, then district and school supervisors would talk?
Collaborate. Now, if it's not itinerant and it's a counselor, the same rule would apply, but the principal would determine whether or not that person has the ability. If it's a school-based person, the principal would determine whether or not they should be covering regular classes.
The caucus report with that option.
What option? 5. I have it right here. Okay. Yep. If employee is itinerant, then district and school supervisors would collaborate. If not itinerant, then school-based principal would decide. It's all again about that.
For special instruction.
For special instruction. Oh, yeah, itinerant would make sense. Okay. We've got 5 options. We want to straw design, test anything, more discussion, data is needed, labor management discussions we have.
I think maybe the last 2 things you just said, which is data, and labor management discussion. So typically, Dr. Desmore and Mr. Calfee are in there with me, or with us. So hopefully we have that data and then we can talk about that before we come to bargaining on Wednesday night.
So as we were looking to hopefully ratify before the end of the school year, the best dates for ratification would be the 29th and the 30th of May. It would be a Wednesday and a Thursday, nobody wants to ratify on a Friday. So Wednesday and a Thursday. That means we would probably have to have the document out there no later than the 17th if we included kind of the weekends in the time that we allow people to look at it, which we typically don't do, but it is what it is. Here I am talking about something nobody wants to talk about. We have the 8th. So the 8th, we need to do compensation. We need to figure out where we're going with this, basically based on the decision. And then there's probably some little cleanup stuff we need to do. I would think you would need 3 or 4 days between us, maybe 5 days to review the document before we get it out to people. So that would probably be the 13th. So at this point, I'm not sure we're ratifying by the end of the year.
Well, all I can say is that I'm looking at my pal here next to me, Christine, because ultimately it will probably be the two of us. So, we lost a whole department, so you all know that. So, I will do my very best. I mean, I don't think there's a huge amount of language. So the ability to get out of TA shouldn't take that long, knock on wood. So I will be optimistic on this side of the table, if we were to come to an agreement.
I just want to make sure, you said the best day for ratification is 29th and 30th?
Whatever the of May, or whatever the last Wednesday and Thursday are in May. That would probably give you time enough to put it before the school board on their June meeting, because we're pretty quick.
Okay, thank you. Questions, comments, next steps?
Well, I think we're at a bit of a standstill unless they being TALC, want to move on to further compensation conversation tonight. If they want to start that, it's up to them.
Kevin?
And again, this is compensation related, but it's not money related. I'd like to have a conversation about enshrining the idea that supplements not attached to your job description are not required, cannot be required, and no adverse employment action shall be taken against an employee for turning down a supplement. You may ask, holy cow, that's random. But there is an elementary school where a person was asked to take the testing coordinator position. She refused. The principal advertised her job, and there is no adverse employment stuff going on there. So, yeah. And, because they're kind of after 2011, there's really no expectation of reappointment, but, you probably shouldn't be required to take something that causes you to work after school if you don't want to.
Rob?
So just throwing out off the top of my head language, you're looking like something that says basically supplements are an individual's desire to work supplements is voluntary or something.
And no adverse employment action
Right.
shall be taken.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you want to do that option?
Yeah, not attached to the job description. Well, that's up to Kevin. I mean, it was his issue, so.
Yeah, I think, if hers, you're comfortable that we think we can get that knocked out in the next, 15, 20 minutes.
So I have Carl looking perplexed. So basically, I think what they're saying is you can't force someone to take a supplement that's not attached to their job description. Like a nurse gets a supplement, but it's attached to her job, or his or her job description, so. I think it's just language
Carl,
documenting what we
not
already
every
know, what we already know.
is as nice to work at as yours. The story I told, well, it's not, common sense is not all that common anymore, and the story I relayed is absolutely factual. A lady was non-renewed for not agreeing to be the testing coordinator, and her job was posted.
That's easy. Well, yeah.
I think Carl's perplexed look is kind of indicative of the fact that I'm not sure we need language for a one-off situation, so now I'm hearing it's not a one-off. Okay. Oh. Yeah. Forced supplements is something I've never dealt with here, but that doesn't mean it's not happening.
Carl?
Yeah.
Something?
Okay, I'm not opposed to that because it's too easy to follow. However, I think my main and number one concern is that if those things actually happen, I sincerely hope that that has been brought to district administration and been dealt with, because no, only reason I'm saying that is because of the fact that, because this is what as I'm listening, I'm hoping that it's not something where, because now I'm trying to, in my mind, fathom with the shortage that we have, why someone would be based on just that. Now, flip side, I hope it's not that it was something that may have happened anyway, but it just doesn't make sense to me. Matter of fact, anything retaliatory is really subject to be dealt with anyway, whether it's in the contract or not. Retaliatory, but yeah, kind of there's a burden of proof.
Right, there's a burden of proof, and this employee was hired after 2011, which makes them a forever annual who can be renewed for almost no reason at all and has no discipline. And if I could ask for one thing that would make my life easier, it is an increased level of accountability for certain building level administrators from people in this building.
Now, I want to ask one more question along those lines with the, because I thought there are already, and perhaps with so many consecutive effective evaluations and things of that nature, there are things that you have to do in order to not renew. Is that not correct?
No, that went away 3 years ago, when the legislature said that not only can you not provide a professional services contract, you can't even provide the expectation of continued employment from one year to the next. So with, I believe it was Dr. Pruitt and Mr. Rothenberg at the time, we rewrote Article 5, I believe it is, it was the reappointment procedures, so that it was more positive.
Towards the statute. Okay.
But the district cannot force a principal to renew an annual contract teacher, even with no discipline and highly effective evaluations.
Okay, thanks.
Charles?
Then I'm okay with it.
That's true. It's surplus.
So this is the first time I'm hearing about this, so of course, once we know, we will address it. But there is a process that we follow. So we meet weekly with HR, the school development and HR, and the purpose of that meeting is to receive reports from labor management. So they bring any patterns that we see with administrators so that we can deal with it. So we have not heard of this being a concern. Now that we have it, we'll deal with it. We have to know, we're not mind readers, so we have to know what's going on in order for us to deal with it.
Right, Shay, and then Kurt.
Okay, go ahead.
I think part of the problem why you guys aren't hearing these things is because, this particular situation is a little different, but there are many principals out there that need to fill their supplements, and we understand that. And it's sometimes, the over-encouragement that you need to take this supplement, and they do it because they fear retribution. And then there are people that just outright won't do it, and they see things change. I guess it's a good way to put it. With us being in our teacher shortage right now, people are trying to make principals happy because they don't want to lose their job, although they could probably go right down the street and get 3 more. But it's been happening for years. It's just becoming a little bit more often and more pressure, I think.
Yeah.
And I agree, if it's happening, it's unacceptable, and we'll deal with it, like that's ridiculous.
Hey, Kirk.
Piggyback on what Mr. Burnside said, I typically agree that we don't need these little one-offs for things like this. From my perspective, I would love a small line in CBA that I can say, look, this here tells you, the word supplement should do it enough, it's supplemental. But a line that says, you're not required to take and you can't be retaliated against. I think that's all we want.
Okay, Carl?
Like I said, I'm not opposed to the thought because it's too easy, but one of the things, the flip side to it is this, is that a lot of times what some teachers do through the years, your gifts make room for you. So sometimes you some principals have accepted maybe a little lower level of teacher instructional performance. And so at the high school level, you may place, maybe because they are doing things to support other areas, because everybody has their talents. So like I said, your gifts make room for you. So I'm okay with that, just because, especially in this era that we're living in now, where I will tell you, it's really the other way around generally. Now, there may be some where most principals, I can tell you, are accepting, they're more accepting to have the retention. I do really sense that. Now, as it with anything else, I guess there's some exceptions, and perhaps it may be that 1 or 2 places don't have a shortage, or they don't have to worry about when they advertise, there won't be people who will apply. But that's all I'm okay with. I can never live with it. I just want to make sure we follow up, like what Shannon said, that needs to be done, followed up with, so those individuals' situations can be dealt with.
Okay, so I just want to say 2 things real quick, because I know girls have an option. A lot of people that I hear that are having to do more than 1 supplement does refer a lot back to the elementary and middle school testing coordinators. A lot of them are also MTSS or PBIS or God only knows what else. All of you received an invite to the teacher leader program at our TALC office on Saturday from 11 to 1. Nobody RSVP'd, but that's okay. But we do have a teacher, so a little bit about our program, super quick. Teachers in our district come together. We work for about 8 months. They come up with research topics. They do all the research, and they kind of present a possible solution. And one of them is about testing coordinators and the additional duties that they have to do. So, thanks.
Okay. All right, Curry, you want to put up an option?
Yes,
Since
please.
we are getting close to our time of 7 o'clock?
I'd like to put up the option I just mentioned, that supplements are not, no one's required to take a supplement, and no adverse action shall be taken for refusing to take a supplement.
Yeah, so bargaining's bargaining. So we have an issue involving keeping established, people that are receiving a TALC supplement, that are established in that supplement, being able to stay in that supplement, because the school was not able to find a school-based person to do that supplement, specifically athletic coaches. So Well, that's an interest of ours.
Okay.
So,
Do you have an option you want to give?
well, the option would be that an athletic coach who has been continuously or is in the position shall be able to continue in that position until they no longer want to be in that position. I know that's bad word, but, and then it would go back to school-based people.
Okay, so this is option one. Option two is
Which is a different issue, granted.
with
Yeah.
a coach or?
Yeah, athletic coach.
Athletic coach.
Who is not a school-based or TALC person, but it's a TALC supplement. As they should be permitted to continue in that coaching position until they relinquish it.
Okay, I've got Shay and Kevin.
This might sound like a redundant question, but what if that coach isn't doing a good job?
Okay.
Well, that's up to the principal. I mean, a supplement, you're not entitled to coach. I mean,
Well, because
they can be let go. I mean, if they're 0 in 5 years, they haven't won a game, the principal can let them go, just like they can now.
But I feel like the language is saying that if they're in that position, they can continue until they don't want to.
So I'll tell you, we have a situation, another one-off, where a coach is being told they can't continue because they don't work for the district, they're an outside individual, and the person has been a successful coach. So we're trying to protect a coach who we were lucky enough to get because nobody in the school wanted to do the coaching. And now that has changed.
I have to look for it, but I think there's language in the contract about supplements first go to someone of the TALC bargaining unit. And someone can correct me if I'm wrong.
I've got Kevin and then I've got Horace.
Of course, can get them all. Too bad I got a microphone first. Of course, can get them like first.
It's like a race then.
It is.
Yeah,
Yeah, Jessica had her hand up first.
Yes, I didn't see you, I apologize.
All right, so I have often said that the supplements for athletics, especially high school athletics, are different. And I'm not gonna throw my friend Karen under the bus. But let's say we had somebody who is a TALC employee who has never coached high school football, right? And we have an outside employee who has experience coaching football and who has coached football, wants to coach football, okay? And I reached out to my colleagues around this because I know it's kind of a one-off. And I think here also, but are we, kind of given the idea that an outside person has a continuing contract aspect ownership to this supplement? You know what I mean? I mean, they pretty much have it till they don't want it or until they get fired. I think, and again, I'm not saying any supplement should ever come out of my bargaining unit, okay? But I do think, especially when we look at high school athletics and the potentials for those students to advance their academic and possibly their professional, their professional stuff as grown-ups, to be called in the NBA or the NFL draft night, to make a significant, life-changing amount of money. I think there is some room to argue that the person coaching them in high school should, know the triangle offense or know, cover two or know that kind of stuff and know what they're doing. I'm not sure this language, and I don't want to, because mine was kind of written in haste too, right? I'm not sure if it's better for us to kind of establish a hiring criteria around the athletic scholarships, kind of like a checklist with, some experience in the field being worth points when we hire somebody. Again, but I will agree always that, especially at the high school level, I would rather have my daughter being coached when she played soccer at South. She was coached by an outside person who had a bunch of soccer experience
I'm not sure why it fell to him, I wasn't in this role at the time, but he clearly knew what he was doing, and the girls soccer team at South were better for him. So I definitely think at the high school level, it's an issue that we need to really talk about and kind of drill down.
Thank you, of course.
Jessica.
Oh, Jessica.
Jessica, freaking Jessica.
Mine was just back to what Rob had said earlier, and I don't know if this is, but where Chris said, no one is required to take a supplement other than the ones directly associated with a role, like an ESE supplement, or do we want to put that in?
Yes.
Take a supplement.
Not directly associated with their role.
Right.
Of course,
I was echoing really and wanted to help draw the distinction that Rob was making with this particular option. And that just kind of paint a scenario, if it hasn't been painted clearly enough, where you have a coach that, like he stated, that is volunteer and not instructional staff or not an employee of the district, but is volunteer and has been successful in coaching. As it stands now, if a TALC member or a member of staff of a school, they, let's say coming for next season, would pretty much get first dibs on that job.
That's how it's currently written.
Yeah, it's how it's currently written, and that's really what we're trying to address that situation. As you say, I think you hit all the points precisely right with high school athletics, and if we can somehow carve out just our athletics with this, because it's more than just about money in this regards for the teaching supplement. This has a lot to do with the students' interest in even advancing in that sport to get scholarships. Even if they don't go pro, but just being prepared and develop in a manner so that they can get scholarships to get even better educational opportunities after it. So I just want to make sure we highlight that point and really got that they're really clear on what we're aiming at with that particular option.
Thank you for that clarification. Mark did that, and you're showing a hiring criteria for athletic coaches. So that's something that could be back up here, would that cover it or no?
That was me kind of too.
Okay. Yeah, you did, but I wonder if that addresses that, and no, we can still add something else.
Yeah, I think it's about continuity of coaching. Someone could have experience in a particular sport, and they could bump the person who's been there for 5 years with a running successful program. So just because, I don't know that hiring criteria will solve the issue necessarily.
So it's also about continuity.
It is also about continuity. If we have somebody who has been successfully coaching a program for a number of seasons, and that person has agreed to stay on, somebody who may also have experience shouldn't be able to come in and just bump that person on a whim, I guess, is what we're trying to prevent here.
Carl? And we are at 6:53. Oh, and I'm sorry, Lewis as well? Okay, go ahead, Carl, and then Lewis.
And I think what it comes down to, it needs to be contract language that allows, like, the principal to make that choice if they want to maintain that. I think that's really what we're talking about, because sometimes as principal, I prefer to have someone, if a person who's not employed at the school, if it's not a person that's doing all the right things, even if they're a good coach, as principal, I may not want to have that person continue because they're not an employee. And with an employee, you have more control mechanisms and things of that nature. But I think the language that allows the principal to continue or to hire someone based on other criteria, that's not necessarily a TALC member. And I think we've all seen situations, especially in the last 5 years, where we've seen that happen, that we've seen other individuals come in and step up and do some of the things that what Kevin mentioned.
Okay, then we got Lewis. Lewis, then Rob? Okay.
As someone whose job has a supplement attached to it that doesn't quite get that protection and whose supplement is on par with a head football coach, I tell you, you're gonna have a bunch of music educators that are gonna have a serious problem with that, because we can be replaced that way, even if we are doing a good job. So, I mean, that kind of protection, you know, for somebody in my field.
So we can include band directors, I mean, and athletic coaches. I'm just at the point with 5 minutes left, we'll do what you do what we want, we'll do what you want.
$10 million.
With the supplements.
Extra.
With the supplements.
Extra.
So I mean, again, we can do this first thing, because again, I think this does handle, I don't have the microphone, but I think this does handle a one-off, but I also think, like, thinking into the future when none of us are at this table anymore, kind of what does the hiring and maintaining of athletic coaches at the high school level look like for the district? You know, I really think we need to be thinking 20 years from now, you know, when every high school football team has won a state championship or stuff like that. We need to think about that as well.
So what am I hearing? You want to test something? You want to take a look
Let's
at the
test it at
language?
5, let's test it at 4:05 on Wednesday,
Okay,
after check.
sounds good to me.
Amy, we have one good of the order thing?
Okay, we do one good of the order?
Shit.
I just talked to them before.
Oh, did you?
Oh,
Yeah, I invited them all.
I'm sorry, it was a TLC mistake, my apologies.
About their, teacher thing? Saturday. No, this is not. So how we test this?